Gary, when you live in a neighborhood like this, sometimes your closest neighbors aren't the ones with driveways next door, but they're the furry critters that like to live in the surrounding forest. And they're used to living in little nooks and crannies out there. And by golly, look at all the brand new nooks and crannies on a new home, new log home being built here. How do you keep them away?
Well, they can also look for a new home. So they might be looking for some of these nooks and crannies, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And you know, they require different things. The mice, as they're moving around in August, and the bats, and temperatures are dropping, they're looking to crawl into some of these cracks at the ends of the logs, or during the settling process, when the shrinkage happens, we're allowing some of those spaces to occur, and then we'll take care of them with caulk and chinking later.
Okay. And how big openings do we have to be aware of, or how small an opening do we have to be aware of?
Well, the opening is going to be determined by the animal, like the mice, probably a 1/4 inch or whatever their head size is, and then the bats, they might even be down to 3/16.
Wow.
It's surprising sometimes. And if we're looking for any insects, then we might even want to caulk the smaller areas.
Okay.
But a lot of that will happen over the next year or so.
All right. And it's not that we're picking on this house, it's just that it's still in the finishing process, so it might be a little bit easier for us to find some of these locations on this house. So what do you say we scope it out and see if we can find a few examples?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Dean, here's one of those areas of concern on the end of the trim piece. It left a hole and as a possible place for mice to crawl in. This doesn't happen very often, but it can when the logs protrude back a little further. We can take care of this at this time by putting a piece of colored metal over the end, and then later we'll caulk that. Other areas will be in corners. We have a couple examples right there in the notch, and also on the log tail here.
The settling.
The settling.
Isn't complete yet.
It isn't complete. And these tails are normally left open for a while because otherwise they would hang up there instead of putting pressure on the wall and keeping those joints tight.
Sure.
So later on there'll be a backer rod put in there and some caulk or chinking to match the color of the stain. We can also look up at the higher level, and this is where not necessarily mice, but bats, they like to drop when they exit. And so right next to a ridge pole or these purlins that run next parallel with the ridge pole, they'll crawl back into those cracks. I've noticed on some other areas on this house they've already been caulked so that it doesn't create that space. But here's one that still exists, and maybe they'll be getting that in the near future.